Today we're going to be talking about Catholic superheroes, or also known as the Great Saints. I'm going to share 3 different saints and 3 different stories with them. The first saint that we're going to be talking about is Saint Isaac Jogues. Saint Isaac Jogues was this awesome Jesuit missionary that wanted to serve the joy of the gospel to those that didn't want to hear it. And so he went on this expedition with his fellow missionaries to get supplies when warpath Indians came and ambushed them. And he was taken, and him and his friend Rene, they were tortured. The nails on their fingers were ripped off. They were also, parts of his fingers were bitten off by the Indians. They would rip out his beard. They would rip out the hair on his head. And they were just torturing him over and over. Rene was actually killed by them when he gave a small child the sign of the cross on his head. And so St. Isaac Jogues actually escaped. And he went back to his brothers in the missionaries. And when they gathered everybody up, they said, so who's going to go back? Who's going to go and serve? And nobody raised their hand. And with courage and fortitude, St. Isaac Jogues raised his hand after being tortured. And he said, I'll go back. Because he knew that there was still more to be said. And when he went back, he was actually captured again. And he was tortured and he was killed and martyred for his faith. You see, St. Isaac Jogues showed so much courage, so much fortitude, and he gave all that he could to share the gospel. So St. Isaac Jogues, pray for us. So that was the first saint. The second saint that I'm going to share with you is St. Maria Goretti. St. Maria Goretti is one of my favorite saints. She is this young saint that said yes to God and wanted to keep herself pure. But there was this neighbor, an 18-year-old, his name was Alessandro. And Alessandro actually loved Maria Goretti and was infatuated by her to the point that he made many attempts to seduce her. And Maria Goretti, in her heart, she wanted to preserve, to be pure for her Lord. And so she kept saying, no, 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 to the point that Alessandro grabbed her by the neck and started choking her. And as he was choking her, she was saying, no, it's a sin. It's a sin. And he pulled out a knife and he just stabbed her and left her bleeding. And she was rushed to the hospital in Nettuno, Italy. And as she was rushed there, she was on her deathbed. I mean, the surgeon was trying to help her. And the surgeon asked her, pray for me, Maria, pray for me. And so what's powerful about this is Maria prayed for the surgeon, but she also turned to the mother and said, I forgive Alessandro. I forgive him for what he's doing. And she grabbed onto the cross that was on her bed, and she looked at the Virgin Mary, and she died. And so after a little time, they found Alessandro, they captured him, they arrested him, and he was unrepentant. And he was mad at Maria that she didn't cave into this lustful acts. And he was mad, and he was sent to prison, and while he was serving there, he had this dream. And Maria Goretti knocked down the walls of the prison and dropped these lilies before him and forgave him. And so Alessandro, after he served the many years for killing Maria, ran back to the mother and begged her on his knees, begged her to forgive him. And the mother looked down, knowing that this is the man that killed her daughter, and said, if my daughter can forgive you, then I can too. And what's powerful about this story is at Maria Goretti's canonization to become a saint years later, Maria Goretti's mother and Alessandro stood there side by side at the canonization. And Alessandro actually joined the monks at a monastery, and he served for the rest of his life in the monastery. St. Maria Goretti has a powerful story of why purity and why saying yes to God in so many different ways is just an opportunity to just really give yourself in a new way. So St. Maria Goretti, pray for us. The third saint that I wanted to talk about is St. Maximilian Kolbe. St. Maximilian Kolbe was this man that served and joined this order and wanted to bring the good news of the gospel. And he wanted to share the Virgin Mary with all of those that he was talking with. So he went out to Japan, he went across Asia to serve and give this good news. And when he became sick, he came back to Poland, and he was serving in the monastery there right during the pivotal times of World War II. And so he was housing Jews, and the Germans came in and they took them all, and they took St. Maximilian Kolbe to a camp, and then he was later transferred to Auschwitz. And what's interesting about his story and what's amazing about his story is that he was someone that served with such joy and wanted to share that joy with everyone that he met. St. Maximilian Kolbe was in this camp, and if one prisoner actually escaped, the guards, they would take 10 prisoners and put them in a starvation chamber just to die, like as a consequence for those that escaped. And so there was one day when 2 prisoners escaped. And so the guards were choosing each person to go. And when they came to the last person, he begged, he said, "No, please, I have a family. Please don't choose me." And without skipping a beat, without even thinking about it, St. Maximilian stepped forward and volunteered his place for that man. And he went into the starvation chamber. And he was there and he was singing psalms of praise. Now, I was actually at Auschwitz and went into that same chamber. And it is unlike anything that I could ever describe to you. I mean, the walls that are made of stone still had nail marks for the people that were dying inside trying to get out. St. Maximilian Kolbe, they said you could hear psalms being sung out loud to the point where everybody died, that he was one of the last ones left. They said, "Just renounce your faith, renounce it." And he was like, "No." And so they gave him lethal injection and they killed him. And he died a martyr. St. Maximilian Kolbe said yes, even when the times were tough. That yes is powerful. That yes can change the world. Your yes can change the world. As you see behind me, it says fiat. And fiat is that Latin word that Mary said to the angel Gabriel. That she gave all of herself, everything that she had plans for, she gave that to God with that fiat. Today we make our fiat. Say yes to God today, tomorrow, and every day to come. Be happy, be healthy, be holy.